Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Devin Shanahan Show. Today we got a lot of things to talk about. Just kidding, we don't have a lot of things to talk about. We are going to cover the recent leak of the Shanghai branch of the Chinese Communist Party. I have not seen a lot of news organizations picking up on this and covering it at all. So, we're going to step in where the mainstream media has failed, and we're going to cover it. We're also going to cover a little bit about the vaccine and the latest news and how the media was skeptical that Donald Trump would be able to deliver through Operation Warp Speed. And we're also going to talk about what may happen on January 6th when the House goes to certify the election results and count the electoral votes, which happened yesterday, and how that could be a problem, how we could see a big battle between the Republicans who are not satisfied with the results of the election or the investigations, the audits, whatever it may be, and the Democrats who are obviously motivated to get Joe Biden in there as quickly as possible. So let's jump into the news. Let's start with the CCP leak. We got an article here from infosecurity-magazine.com. Data leak exposes details of 2 million Chinese Communist Party members. Sensitive data of around 2 million members of the Communist Party of China have been leaked, highlighting their positions in major organizations, including government agencies throughout the world. According to the reports from the Australian newspaper featured in the Economic Times, the information includes official records such as party position, birth date, national ID number, and ethnicity. It revealed that members of China's ruling party hold prominent positions in some of the world's biggest companies, including in pharmaceutical giants involved in the development of vaccines like Pfizer and financial institutions such as HSBC. The investigation by the Australians centered around the data leak, which was extracted from a Shanghai server in 2016 by Chinese dissidents. It noted that CPC members are employed as senior political and government affairs specialists in at least 10 consulates, including the US, the UK, and Australia, in the eastern Chinese metropolis, Shanghai. The paper added that many other members hold positions inside universities and government agencies. The report emphasized there is no evidence that spying for the Chinese government or other forms of cyber espionage have taken place. Obviously, there's not going to be any evidence of that from this list. I looked at this list. You can go look at it. It's out there. It is on GitLab, I believe. I'll post a link in the description for those of you interested, but it's out there on GitLab. It's just a CSV file, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet for those of you who are not in tune with the computer words there. It's basically an Excel spreadsheet. It just contains like national ID number, name, place, where they work, ethnicity, things like that. National ID number, I'm assuming, is like similar to like a social security number if you're a United States citizen. So pretty important stuff, right? And yeah, so obviously it's not going to say if these people are spies or not. It just says that these people are members of the Shanghai branch of the Chinese Communist Party. And as you know, if you are a member of the Chinese Communist Party, it means that you have taken an oath to spread communism throughout the world by any means necessary. So, this is serious stuff. These people aren't just like, it's not like being a member of the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. This is the Chinese Communist Party, started by Mao Zedong way back in the day, kills millions of people all over the entire world. And, it's bad stuff. So, and it's interesting. You haven't seen any, mainstream media coverage of this, especially in the United States. And I have my suspicions as to why. I personally believe, companies like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, whatever it is, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, all these big mainstream media companies, whatever you want to call them, right? They are, I personally believe that there's a lot of Chinese money in these companies. They have big Chinese donors who are members of the Communist Party, and because China's a communist state, right? There's no business in China that is just a completely separate business and not being messed with by the government over there. So that's just the nature of communism. So, I think personally that these companies are probably receiving a lot of money, and these big donors, these big investors, are leveraging their money essentially and saying, hey, you want this, you want our investments to keep coming, you want our money to keep coming, then you're not going to talk about this. You're not going to talk bad about us, So that's my personal suspicions. But let's go on. In her report, the Australian journalist and Sky News host Shari Markson commented, quote, "What's amazing about this database is not just that it exposes people who are members of the Communist Party and who are now living and working all over the world. from Australia to the US to the UK, but it's amazing because it lifts the lid on how the party operates under President and Chairman Xi Jinping. Quote, it is also going to embarrass some global companies who appear to have no plan in place to protect their intellectual property from theft, from economic espionage. In September, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, and the U.S. Department of Justice issued a joint advisory warning U.S. government agencies and private sector companies to be on high alert for cyber attacks by threat actors affiliated with Chinese Ministry of State Security. So, yeah, there you have it. I mean, this info was out there 3 months ago from today. So over 3 to 4 months ago, essentially. And you haven't seen anyone cover it. It finally broke the news with this this media company from Australia. It finally broke the news like earlier last week, but you still have not seen any mainstream media companies in the United States take this up, like I said, and I find that very troublesome. So, I'm here to give you the news, and we're going to cover it. I think this is big, and while this is 1.9 million Communist Party members, you have to realize this is only the Shanghai branch. This is not like the Beijing branch. The Beijing branch, I'm guessing, is much bigger, be it that Beijing is the capital of China, but I mean, yeah, it's still a big leak. I mean, Shanghai is a huge epicenter in China. So it's good stuff. It's good to out these people. We don't want communism spreading throughout the world, and we need to know who these people are. And it's kind of scary that they're, spread throughout the entire world like this and have so much money in news organizations, government consulates, government agencies, whatever it may be, even possibly government intelligence agencies or military agencies. But yeah, it's scary stuff, but it's good to know. And, we know some of them. I'm hoping you're probably just seeing a lot of flights from these people going back to China now that they've been uncovered, essentially. But who knows? Let's go on. Got another article here about it from the New York Post. U.S. companies riddled with members of Communist Chinese Party. This is obviously a picture of Christine Fang, also known as Fang Fang, and Eric Swalwell, which I covered earlier in a video. Go back and watch that. It's from last week if you want to get yourself up on that. Basically, he was like in bed with this Chinese communist spy who has since fled the country, but we tried to come to terms with the extent of Chinese influence over the Biden family. A leaked database of registered members of the Chinese Communist Party has exposed a mass infiltration of American companies with serious national security implications. Boeing, Qualcomm, and Pfizer are just 3 U.S. companies that have employed dozens of CCP members in their Chinese facilities, the database reveals. As well, 3 female employees of the U.S. consulate in Shanghai have been identified in the list of 1.95 million party members that was leaked to an international group of legislatures, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, which includes Senator Marco Rubio and Bob Menendez. All CCP members swear an oath to, quote, fight for communism throughout my life, be ready at all times to sacrifice my all for the party and the people, and never betray the party and guard party secrets, be loyal to the party. Senator Josh Hawley, representative from Missouri, Republican, a member of the Homeland Security Committee, said yesterday, quote, CCP agents have no place in U.S. government facilities, and this report should serve as a much-needed wake-up call to Washington, D.C. and corporate executives who continue to welcome the Chinese government with open arms. Quote, it is just more evidence of the extent to which the CCP has successfully infiltrated American companies and government. Yeah, we're not going to read the entire article. You guys get the point. I am extremely worried about, I wonder if there are any people in this list who are like tied to Biden or any of his institutions in any way, or, any of these Hunter Biden companies that we've seen, having problems with or getting into trouble with, or any of, Joe Biden's brother, James, he had like a bunch of companies apparently too. It's this medical company and stuff like that. So I wonder if there's any people on that list involved in that. As we know, it's not going to change my opinion that Joe Biden is personally bought by China, but it'll be interesting to see either way. I'm sure we got a lot of people out there already searching this list though for everybody, so I don't have to do it myself. That's good. All right, let's go on. Got an article here from the Daily Wire. McEnany shows how media changed coverage on Hunter Biden scandal after election. Torches Swalwell over Chinese spy story. White House Press Secretary Kayla McEnany slammed the media during a press conference on Tuesday for its lack of coverage over the story involving Representative Eric Swalwell and an alleged Chinese spy, and for how many news organizations changed the way they covered the Hunter Biden scandal. Yeah, that is very notable. We saw the New York Post get banned from Twitter for 16 days after they posted an article about this, essentially about this Hunter Biden scandal that they're talking about. Totally true article. There were no lies in it. It was, Twitter banned them because they said it violated their hacked materials, but these were not hacked materials. As we know, these materials came from a laptop that Hunter Biden himself or one of his aides turned into a Delaware computer repair store. And never came and got it back. So, we saw Twitter censor this, complete belligerent censorship of the New York Post. And now, and, no mainstream media picked this up. Not even Fox News really picked this up before the election. And now you're seeing them pick this up and saying, oh, yeah, I wonder how these Hunter Biden investigations, there's 4 of them right now from the FBI. I wonder how these investigations will affect the Joe Biden presidency. And they're finally starting to cover it. And this bias is absolutely absurd. It's quite clear that they just didn't want to influence the election in a negative way for Joe Biden. So they wait until after the election, now that they think it's safe and that Joe Biden is the president. Well, they start talking about it again and trying to gain back trust with the American people. The problem is, the American people see right through this. It's quite obvious what they're doing, and, you're not going to fool anyone in America anymore. And it's quite clear because, the ratings for these news companies are going down, and it's because they constantly lie. Let's watch this video here of exactly what she said.
A deal with a sunset provision that would have allowed them to get nuclear weapons. This president has isolated Iran, and he's done it through 4 peace deals, which is 4 more than his predecessor. But it's unfortunate that it doesn't give much coverage in the mainstream media. But I guess we shouldn't be surprised, because in the last 24, 48 hours, there have been quite a few stories that have not gotten a ton of coverage in the mainstream media. As former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer said, bias is often found in stories the press does not cover. And last week we found out that Democrat Congressman Eric Swalwell was infiltrated by an alleged Chinese spy. This spy cozied up to Swalwell, raised funds for his 2014 campaign, and even planted an intern in his office. And that relationship continued until the FBI briefed him in 2015. And that was some very good reporting done by Axios. But after entangling with this spy for years,
Axios, of all people, doing very good
went
reporting.
On to be one of the lead instigators of the Russia collusion hoax
in
the impeachment sham. Swalwell wrote this on his congressional webpage: President Trump and his team are directly and indirectly tied to Russia. That was not true. He then said in September of 2020, the president has a compromised relationship with Russia.
Yeah, so I covered this in my video about Eric Swalwell and the Chinese spy. While he was saying these things, Eric Swalwell was standing up in front of the House in Congress and literally saying that Donald Trump was beholden to the Russians, while at the same time he's literally in bed with Christine Fang, who is a Chinese spy who was outed by the FBI and under investigation for multiple years. The hypocrisy of these people is unbelievable.
Russia. Untrue. April of 2019, he said President Trump certainly acts on Russia's behalf and acts like Russia's leader. Not true. January 2019, Eric Swalwell said it's pretty clear President Donald Trump is an agent of Russia. Not true. And Swalwell shamelessly claimed Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner had an eagerness and a willingness to work with the Russians during the 2016 election. Again, it was false. In 2019, he falsely claimed this yet again when inquired about collusion.
She's pretty much just going on a giant fact check.
And these baseless attacks were false, yet covered breathlessly by the media. There was no coverage, however, of Swalwell being the one implicated with not Russia, but China. In fact, the New York Times website, as of this morning...
My opinion on the whole Russia versus China thing is that Russia punches way above their weight. They are a poor country. They have decent military stuff. Logistically speaking, they could never compete with the United States. They do not have the logistics background, and most of their technology is years behind where the U.S. stuff is. But however, they do have some stuff. They do have some things where they have some advantages over us, militarily speaking, but they're poor. If we ever went to war with them or anything like that, they would not be able to muster the necessary economic force and logistic force that it would be required to compete with the United States. And that is why I say that, personally, I think that Russia punches above their weight class. They are not a world power, and they punch like they are, but they're not. They just do it to essentially, make Putin feel bad and to posture against the rest of the world and make themselves look good to their own citizens. China, on the other hand, I believe is our largest threat. And, Iran, they're up there too as one of the largest threats, especially since under the Iran deal with Joe Biden coming back in office, they'll be able to essentially just openly fund their nuclear arms program again, which even if the Iran deal was continuing to go on, it would be expiring right around now because it's been almost 10 years. But yeah, let's go on. Let's listen to this.
Morning had not one result for Eric Swalwell's ties to Chinese spies. Not one result. And when the Swalwell story broke, guess how many minutes of coverage it got on ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and CBS? 0. CNN devoted 3 minutes and 16 seconds to it. However, it was covered on Fox. Interesting pre-election and post-election coverage
barely
too
covered
on the
on
Hunter
Fox.
Biden scandal, which was not covered at all by many outlets in the lead up to the election. In fact, on October 15th, you had a New York Times headline that said, Trump said to be warned that he was being given Russian disinformation over Hunter Biden. Now, December 10th, just a few months later, New York Times headline.
Yeah, Russian disinformation about Hunter Biden. Come on, give me a break. Hunter Biden himself, or one of his aides, brought this computer to a computer repair store. Like, that's not Russian disinformation. That's the dude bringing a computer to a computer repair store, not picking it up because he forgot about it because he was a crackhead at the time. And, you know, it's pretty easy to see if you're smoking crack how you'd forget your computer there and leave it there and be like, oh shit, I forgot all my stuff there. It's got a bunch of porn and videos of me smoking crack and a bunch of emails with me and the Chinese and the Kazakhs about Joe and all this stuff. You know, it's pretty easy to see how he would forget it there. And yeah, it's not Russian disinformation. It came from the man himself. Come on, give me a break.
An investigation of Hunter Biden is likely to hang over Biden as he takes office. Washington Post on October 16th, the headline read, "The truth behind the Hunter Biden non-scandal." Now you have the Washington Post.
All right, yeah, she goes on for like another 30 seconds to a minute here, just fact-checking the crap out of them. But yeah, you guys get the point. I love it when Kayleigh McEnany does this. I realize that it might be a little bit, I don't know, it might be a little bit of a waste of time, but it's quite awesome to own them like this and just point out the fact that the hypocrisy runs deep and the media is obviously just an arm of the Democratic Party at this point. So it's gone. Got an article here from Breitbart, who has done some fabulous reporting over the last couple of years, but let's read here. Chris Kobach, January 6th, quote, may very well be a big fight in Congress over the election. Former Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach told Breitbart News on Tuesday that some Republican-majority state legislatures may challenge votes of electors in Congress on January 6, offering his remarks in an interview on SiriusXM's Breitbart News Daily with host Alex Marlow. Congress is scheduled to certify the Electoral College's vote on January 6. As most of you know, the Electoral College voted yesterday, and they did secure that Joe Biden is now officially president-elect. He was not president-elect up until yesterday, but he is now. Kobach said, quote, because the Supreme Court of the United States has not taken the big Texas case, now people are looking at January 6th, when it is possible for Congress. This is when Congress accepts the votes of the electors in the Electoral College. It is possible for members of Congress to raise objections, and that appears to be what some states are planning. Quote, you saw some of the Republican legislatures talking about submitting the names of a Republican set of electors, and there may very well be a big fight in Congress over whether the votes of the electors of those states where they changed the rules without legislative action should be accepted, Kobach said. So stay tuned. Yeah, that's interesting. So I believe Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Maybe Michigan too, or Michigan instead of Wisconsin. I'm not sure. There were a group of 4 or 5 of these swing states that were highly contested and alleged to have some voter fraud and a bunch of unconstitutional laws that were passed or orders that were passed behind the, unconstitutionally, without respect for Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Yeah, but essentially the Republican electors met in these states and cast votes for Donald Trump at the same time when the Democratic electors were casting their votes for Joe Biden. And this is just essentially I think it's kind of just setting the stage so that if there is a legal challenge or if there is a challenge in Congress on January 6th, that these Republican electors have actually cast their votes, and they could maybe be put forward by some of these Congress members who are going to challenge as an alternative set of electors, right? Because if you're going to challenge the Democratic electors come January 6th and you're a member of the House, if you challenge them and the Republican electors didn't vote, then what are you going to challenge them with? If you don't have a replacement, what are you going to do? That's like saying someone's plan is bad, but, not offering an alternative plan. It's very foolish. So I can see why they did that. Personally, I do not think that any challenges in the House are going to be successful. I do think there are a few people in the House who will push hard and push based on the merits, like perhaps Jim Jordan, maybe even Ted Cruz a little bit. Tom Cotton might push a little bit. I know some of those are senators, but, these people might push a little bit. But for the most part, I think a lot of these House members, minus the ones who were just recently elected for the first time, I think a lot of them are, were elected on the merits. But I think most of them are just rhinos, Republicans in name only. I think they're just essentially posturing for the media, posturing for support, trying to look like they support Donald Trump. and so that they can gain his vote, they can gain his down ballot support. But personally, I think a lot of these people are going to cave. They are not going to challenge, and yeah, I mean, we'll see though. Come January 6th, it's not too far off. There is a possibility that everyone's forgot about all this by January 6th too. I mean, we don't know. 2020 has been definitely a crazy year, and yeah, we'll see what happens. A lot could happen between now and then, but yeah, I'm gonna be continuing posting videos through the holiday times. If you guys are going out of town visiting the family, which I have no qualms about. I know a lot of Democratic people, Democratic governors have some qualms about that. Hopefully, you don't live in one of those states, but yeah, if you don't end up watching any of my videos over the holiday season, have a good holidays, have a good Christmas, have a good New Year's, spend time with the family. Be thankful for these times because it's been, like I said, it's been a crazy year and we never know what year might be our last. So yeah, if you like my videos, share them with your friends, families, coworkers. I'm on all the podcast providers, so you can listen there too if you don't like watching on YouTube. But yeah, like, subscribe, share, and have a good one, everybody. Thank you very much.